happened last week is that we maybe that shows not really how much is relevant for the audience at the moment, because I don't believe that many are using the spec API, but the spec API itself got changed, actually, the group API name recently. Up to now it was service.binding. They changed that to the service.binding.io, and the version got updated from V1 Alpha 2 to V1 Alpha 3. That's the additional API we started to support recently with the I think with the version 0.9. Now, if you're a consumer of that API, you need to update your resources to reflect the right group API name and version. But I don't think that any of you in the call are using that in the moment. But just for your awareness. Apart from that, we fixed a bug reported by Wojciech. So we narrowed down, as you're all aware, we narrowed down the permissions of the service binding service account, so that by default only plain Kubernetes resources are bindable. Wojciech kind of noticed that the deployment config of the OpenShift is not there, so they would need to add a cluster role. And since we are delivering ourselves through the Red Hat channels and catalogs, so we added back that cluster role for deployment config. So the deployment config are supported out of the box as the applications. That these are the news. We are still working on a user guide, which perhaps will be interesting for the audience to see the link to the PR. Looking forward to feedback. So we are in I would say, final iteration of polishing the user guide before merging. But of course, if you have some minutes to have a read, and maybe if there are some suggestions to improve what's not clear, that will be super helpful, that we can address it here. Yeah.
Yeah, the documentation PR link I shared, that's almost, we've gone through a lot of iterations and review comments. It's mostly in a good shape now. Thanks to Thomas also, your comment, we addressed that issue also. Now, hopefully we can merge it soon once I get a couple of approvals. And yeah, so any other, should I go through this in detail, or any other topic that we can cover?
Devin, do you have anything for today? You would like to share something with the group?
I have a few questions, but I'll do Go last. Okay. No one else? Mine is new. So yeah. So for those who don't like Steven and Pradak, we've been working with the MAS team on improving workflows, and in there we found a few issues. Not so much with the operator, but more about the behavior of things. So there's and something. So yeah. So one is something about behavior, but another one is also about adoption of service binding spec. Because me as a Quarkus user or Spring user or Node.js user, I don't care at all how the operator is bound, like how Postgres or Kafka is bound. I just want to be able to declare, I want a Kafka. That's it. There should be no mappings. There should be no nothing. That's it. What I'm interested in, right? When I read the SPO doc, it seems to be much more about these from the operator's perspective, which is fine. But from a application end user, I'm curious what we can do to kind of improve the situation. And one thing I'm really in the dark on is, where are the operators that supports service binding? Like, we have Kafka. Mm-hmm. In Quarkus, we've added some code to handle Kafka, so it's automatic. But what about Postgres? And I want to have that list so we on Quarkus side can actually make sure that we work with them. But I don't know where to look, basically. That's the first question. So what do we do there?
Actually that's a good point, because that's what we are trying to work on there's two different streams of work that we are doing on this. The first one, which is the most immediate one, is about giving the ability for service binding to be able to bind to the most well-known and most used operators that we observed on OpenShift. So for that, there's two ways. Either all the operators for the service providers are becoming compliant with the specification, or we do some sort of an engine that is going to know where the binding metadata are and give that to service binding operator so that it can inject it into the application. So that's the second approach that we are trying to work on at the moment. We have defined a list of 15 services that we want service binding operator to be working with out of the box. So it includes databases and some other services. We can provide the issue for that if you want. So we are working on that at the moment. The second aspect is how can we make and how can we have third-party services and the ecosystem of services that is becoming compliant with the specification, so that when they deliver their operator onto our marketplace, it works and we don't have to worry about that. That part is going to be a little bit more, I'm expecting it to be things that are going to move more long-term, because it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. Yes. If you go to Mongo, if you go to Redis, and you tell them, hey, you should be compliant with the specification, they are going to ask, okay, so what is this? Where it is available?
Yeah, no, I get it.
But we need to start somewhere, because I think that we can get to that really easily. And if we don't have 15 services, if we have one or two for most used, like Postgres, like we can do audio, documentation, tutorial. Max can do the same thing on Quarkus side. And that it's the discussion that's easier because users can see, okay, this is benefit.
Yeah.
It will make my workflow easier. And then the discussion with the rest of the operators will be easier because they can see how it helps.
So that's why we are currently focusing on making sure that service binding operator is going to be compliant, working out of the box with a set of services.
Yeah,
that's the main reason.
Yeah.
You are right.
I want us to be aware now. What are the three? Because I'm pretty sure we implemented the first. We guessed on what properties will be in the Postgres, but I'm sure you probably choose another set of properties. So we should make sure that before you go out and release something, just give us a hint, and at best let us know how we can test it, because that's the other problem we have. We don't have access to testing any of this. We have
Sandbox,
right? And Sandbox only gets a GA, and that's too late. So
okay. What is not documented, but you can. That's something we should definitely share with you. You can actually test and deploy version for master, and it's pretty straightforward. So Thomas, I know that Thomas is doing that in some nightly jobs and so on. So there is a way to test things.
From access problem with cluster because they don't have access to the clusters.
And I think Predrag, what Max is asking is that where can I test service binding operator and a PostgreSQL database and a Quarkus application, so I can see how this works together. I think this is what he's asking. It's an environment where those things are going to be set up, and as a framework, Java framework.
Like I can do all the Java stuff and the Quarkus stuff, but what I'm looking for is where can I run OpenShift with the SBO, whatever version it takes, and this set of like one or two or three of these operators that you have in that issue. I need that. It's like we have 3 people on our team who want to, but they've literally been on hold on doing anything because they've been coding in the dark. They've been like coding to the spec, and they have no access to testing until we got the sandbox with Kafka. That's literally the first time we had access to the stuff. So if we can improve that, that'll be amazing.
So do you have do we have here infrastructural issue? You don't have a way to provision some clusters, OpenShift clusters? Should we?
Yeah, we have one class. We don't have the access you guys have. Well, maybe we do. We have clusters, but we have no idea what other 24 steps we need to do to get a Redis, a Postgres, XYZ with this thing in it.
All right. Okay. That makes
So-
sense. Okay. I think we can definitely help you with that, Pavel.
Yeah.
So we could establish some on our daily clusters. We can
Sure.
start doing stuff.
If you could have
Okay.
that, that'd be awesome. And because I'll tell you, that's the thing that's been holding us back on trying to push more. Because I really, like you asked me yesterday about, hey, do you have a Quarkus with a Quarkus app with a Postgres? And I have the app, but I have no idea if it works because we never had a operator set up that actually had that thing in there.
I'm wondering if even CRC would work, if that would be enough.
Maybe we just never going to be able to run CSC in a laptop.
No, but Pavel, I think there's we can't avoid this. In fact, it's something that we should probably give the ability so that we can have also all the work for the framework. So if we want to work with the files from Node.js or from Python or things like that, they might want to be able to test with those 15 services. So we probably need to have that infrastructure that will be easy to provision for others to consume. I think it's
like we also find having, if you have a cluster, you reset up every day or something. I think that's fine as long as we just know. Oh, here's the URL or here's the key
Access
to
info,
get in, right?
yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's easy. You know,
Yeah.
you
Also,
can.
so can someone take the ownership of that and then give me that information, like where I can find it? Because I know we have people that will go and try it out.
Do you have? Are you on Slack?
Yeah.
For us,
Does
I
it
can
stop-
because we for our internal testing, we are spinning up daily clusters which spend for a couple of like 10 hours or so. They are temporary ones in development.
Yeah.
And actually, the way how we do it is that once they are provisioned, the connection information such as config file and the kubeadmin the admin password are posted on one of our channels. So we can set up something like that for you as well. I can enable a job for the cluster for you, just for you. That's doable.
Yeah.
And that so that's one way, or the other way is that I can because it's running in a Jenkins and right, the Jenkins is internal, so you wouldn't be able to get the URL to download these things, but I can post it to Git as well, the secret one. So you might get. Well, anyway, I can do it through the Slack because we are doing that anyway, so it shouldn't be difficult
The
to.
thing, I just want to make sure it's somewhere where not just me see it. Like have it.
Sure.
Somewhere.
If you give me Slack channel or a person to on channel, or I can set up the job to post this.
And it has to be
there.
Slack, not somewhere else more useful.
Well, it can be, of course, it can be anywhere which is accessible through some API with token, right, through internet. The thing is that the Slack is what we already have in place, so that's the most.
No, we
easy one.
we can find a place, sure. Okay, but so that's great if you can get that set up. The other thing is, do we actually have these running? Like I see they all marked as, at least what I look.
No.
They're all in preview, right?
No, so it's still work in progress at the moment. It's moving forward.
Do we have one? I don't need all 12. Just
We even don't have one.
Okay.
Yeah, I know,
Good.
but we are not yet there, and that's why for our GA we are postponing a little bit our GA to make sure that we will have a minimal set of services.
And when is your GA?
It was scheduled for the end of this month, but most probably what's going to happen is that it's going to be delayed from a month.
Yeah.
We are still discussing a little bit about the time frame that is required to do that effort, because it's a bit more complex than what we expected at front.
But that's the same, that I just want to make sure that whatever you guys do there, make sure that we have at least for one or two of those verified that the Quarkus automatic wiring works, which is trivial for us, as long as you don't put like random stuff in there. Then.
I think for us it's also very important because we can publish that under the user documentation. If we have a sample code in Quarkus, hey, on Quarkus, this is how you connect on PostgreSQL, that will make our user documentation much more rich and much more appealing for developers as well. So
that's the the only thing is we also need to have a release of Quarkus where you can use it in, but we release very often, so it's not that much a problem on the community side. Product side, that's a whole other different issue. But let's handle community first.
So that's a little bit where we are on this, Max. Cool. Does it clarify? And okay. So just to be complete on this, once we are GA and we will have this set of services, what we are targeting is to kick off the effort on the operator. And the operators from third-party vendors, which are open source, and where we can actually propose pull requests to them. So we list AKS, Elastic. There's also the Mongo community operator. We know that MySQL is starting to work on an operator as well. So we might be able to kick off the effort with them and get the ball rolling, basically, with those, and try to expand and get other ones. What we will also do is that under our certification program for both operators and mChart, we are also looking at making the compliance with service binding specification one of the check that we are running against those during the certification.
But I think what's important is to make sure that we at least have, like, before we start adding rules. I fully agree with the end goal here, but I'm just really interested in making sure we get just something started that we can iterate on. So have an environment that we can work with you guys on, and get just like the Postgres, anything because I know the great thing with the service binding operator, you don't have to have the operator to do the right thing. You can literally just, if there's nothing from the operator, you can just add in a mapping like automatically, right? That's my understanding.
That's what we are trying to do at the moment. Yeah.
And that's so I can give you like the stuff you're looking for now, and if you put them in, it should work with a Quarkus.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be great if you do that. What about Managed Kafka? You mentioned, I know that Managed Kafka, you have tested this with Managed Kafka. Is that operator already available somewhere on some catalog?
Yeah, so we tested it on Sandbox, right? So it does work if you do things in the right order, but like this part of like, can Quarkus read the configuration? If it's there, that one works, because that's a very simple thing. But there, the big problem is not so much the configuration, but the way it works of, if you don't have the service binding request in there in time, the whole crash loop just keeps running and becomes slower and slower. So even if you as a user goes and add a request, it takes X amount of time before you see a result, right? And that's the other part of this. I was curious if we can somehow find a way to improve.
Okay, I have a question. So for Quarkus, is there any you said something like a standardized expected fields for a specific databases or cache service, right?
Yes.
Is that documented somewhere?
I think
I just pasted something, Spring Cloud, that is for Spring. Is there something like this in the chat?
no, because no, it doesn't, because it doesn't exist. We have no operator that does it. But I can give you. We literally took the same fields they have here,
Oh, okay.
as if I remember correctly. But yeah. So I can go check. I can find the code for it, and you can see the. And just check. I'll look in 2 seconds.
Yeah, by the way, these fields are not a concern for a spec or even for our operator, but I think it's good to standardize.
Yes, but but to standardize, we need to show examples first. Like doing a spec first is not a good way, but we have them as we just need you guys to add it into this operator stuff. But give me just 2 seconds. Talk amongst yourself, and I'll be back in.
It's okay. Yeah, I just if it's something like the Spring Cloud, then I think yeah.
Please put it in agenda, Max, if you can. So just that we have record of that. Whatever.
Yeah,
link.
I'm not sure. Do I have the agenda?
It's an invitation.
Oh, okay. Oh, look. There we go. Binding. Where is the binding?
Thomas, any preferences from your side? What the operators we should address at first?
Postgres. At least some, I
would
say.
But there are plenty of Postgres operators. So which one exactly? That's
from our side, we have been using the PostgreSQL for dev, which is really the simplest one. It's the community operator on OpenShift. It's available on Kubernetes in Upstream Operator Hub. And it's really simple. It's not robust. There are some things that you wouldn't call that they are following best practices. Like there is a password in the spec field in CRD. But because it's very simple, it's very straightforward to use it with the service binding. And for demos and the development purposes, it's great operator because it's simple. So I think that even if we start with a simple use case like this, we will have something that can be used, and we can show the benefits of service binding operator, right? And then we can focus more on the more complicated ones. And what I'm afraid of, one thing is that once we start looking into more robust and complicated operators, we will find that might not be it's not easy or maybe even not possible to expose the binding information because they are stored in the secret. That secrets, for example, is a combination of 2 fields from the spec. That's one of the examples that I found. So I think that we will find a lot of things that are actually missing in the spec or in service binding operator, and that we need to add in order to be usable with some of the operators. And it will be operators that are widely used.
Yeah.
So I think that this work is critical. The only way how to find what we are missing there is actually start with it, right? Even if it means hacking something into the SBO site before we can add it into operators.
So here's the link I just posted here is the code we use in Quarkus to bind a DWC thing. So if you put these properties in, I believe we have a Postgres one, and we can add it for anything else. I think even we are looking just for anything of a type DB. I forgot what it's called, but yeah. Anyway, see, there's password, username, host port, the same thing that comes from the cloud, Spring cloud binding stuff.
So it's practically this what JDBC actually specification expects as a URI. So JDBC URI.
Yeah, and these are the same. Like these work for Go. Like there's no JDBC specific stuff here. It's just what you would need to connect to a database. And then we have for Kafka too, but that's already implemented. But I would definitely go for getting just one database covered, ASAP, and I don't care what operator you choose, just one that is accessible in any any OpenShift we have, and then we should be good. And
So this is the PostgreSQL I was mentioning.
okay, guys, I do have to jump, unfortunately, but Pavel Matchik, let me know where. Ping me on get info about what cluster to get to, and then we figure out how to share with the rest of the team.
Thank you for joining, Max. And,
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks a
feedback.
lot.
See you guys around. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else for today?
Yeah.
I guess, Thomas, you raised something over email. Is it something you wanted to discuss today?
I know it's more on audio side now, but it's basically your or SBO's latest release. It broke a lot of things in audio, or the flow that we had in audio before. The new requirements for the cluster binding, it kind of breaks the way how we were using a service binding operator in audio.
Were you aware of the change?
No, and it's also on our side. There was problem on our side. So we found out basically this week when the users started reporting that the binding doesn't work for them.
Okay. Yeah, because at the same time it has been vacation and so on and so on. So
Now I missed the discussions on the issues on the GitHub. It was my fault. But funny enough, we actually because last time new release broke ODO, SBO new release broke ODO, we added the CI job that was testing against master version.
Mm-hmm.
But that CI job was broken for 2 months. We did not know about that. So yeah. So the reason why we didn't know about that earlier, that it's entirely our fault.
Mm.
But yeah, it's.
But I think so. We observe also a little bit less attendance on this call. And in fact, the team has been sharing few information here. I think it's important that we keep this place as a central place internally, at least, where we can share those kind of information. If that does not suit or we need to improve, let's see what we can do. But otherwise, I think it's important that you or some people from your team can join the call. And one thing that we saw as well is that Philippe has been writing a blog post about Odo and PostgreSQL and using service mining operator.
Yeah.
And it's really nice, but we were not aware. That's okay. People can write blog posts wherever they want, when they want. But we would have appreciated the heads up on it. And Predrag made a good point. He was thinking that it's actually a good document that we could reference in our user documentation as well. So that could be cool.
Yeah, I didn't know about what he was writing either.
Yeah,
so it went out. So it's something that he does. So yeah.
It's probably night work.
Yeah.
Made it weekend.
Yeah, that's fine. It's more. It's we are very close. So yeah. So cool. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah. Otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that all this work about enablement of different services is going to be critical for us in the next months.
Yeah, definitely. Without that, it's not going to end well.
Yeah, and we might start to look at making some of the open source operators becoming compliant, trying to propose some pull requests or things like that to see. And we also have to do that because most of our partners will be willing to become compliant. They will be asking, hey, but what does that mean to support the specification in terms of effort? What are we going to carry with us? So we have to be able to answer to those questions as well.
Well, I think that for that discussion, it's very critical that we have at least one operator, even if it's hacked, that where we can show like the workflow and the value of the service binding when you have those annotations and when you are actually supporting service binding. Because if you can show that, the discussion will be much easier.
Yeah, and it will be even much easier if we have feedbacks from developers who are saying, hey, I love this.
Yeah, but they need to be able to use it first, right? So, which
absolutely
currently it's problematic, at least. So for that issue with the services, really, I think that if we pick at least one database, most simplest use case, and we start with that, we don't need the rest, all the 13. Like, I think that it will get the ball rolling, and then.
I'd like to be a bit more ambitious than just one. If we can have 5. Initially, it was 15. Now we are at 5. So if we decrease to 1, well,
still better than nothing, right? So
it's better than nothing. You're right. But I think the team has been looking at it, and we believe that we should be able to handle.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So one last question, probably to Predrag or Baiju. With the recent introduction of requirement with cluster binding, if we keep using the library, and even if we update to the latest version of like service binding code, is it going to work the same way as before? If you are using the pipeline directly, there should be no problems, right? If it's called with the user that has access to the customer resource and the okay.
Okay, great. Any other topics, Baiju?
We don't have any other topic, so thanks for joining.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you all.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.